My parents abandoned me alone in Paris. No money, no phone, no visa with a note. This is the punishment for turning your back on family. They punished me because I refused to lend their golden child $100,000. 3 years later, they came back asking to see my son. What my wife said next left them shocked. Hey Reddit, when people say family is everything, they never talk about what happens when family becomes your biggest enemy. Paris was supposed to be a trip of celebration, a reward for finally making it on my own, for breaking free of the constant guilt my parents used to control me. Instead, it became the place where I learned what it means to be completely, utterly alone. It started 3 years ago. My parents and I had a complicated relationship, the kind that looked picture perfect from the outside, but inside it was all emotional manipulation and debt disguised as love. They had always favored my younger brother, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, even when his mistakes cost everyone else. When he crashed my parents' car, they made me pay for it. When he lost his job, I loaned him money I never saw again. And when I refused to lend him $100,000 to cover another one of his business ideas, they said I was selfish, that I had turned my back on family. So when they invited me to Paris to reconnect, I was skeptical. But against my better judgment, I said yes. It was supposed to be a week of peace. Family dinners, museums, a chance to finally put the past behind us. The first few days were fine, almost normal. Mom laughed more than usual. Dad asked about my work. Even my brother seemed polite, but on the fourth morning, everything changed. I woke up to silence. No messages, no sounds. Their luggage was gone. So were mine. My wallet gone. My phone gone. Even my passport was missing. On the hotel nightstand lay a folded piece of paper. In my mother's handwriting, this is the punishment for turning your back on family. I read it twice, then again. Every word felt like ice sinking into my chest. They'd left me in another country. No money, no ID, no way home. I stumbled downstairs to the front desk. The receptionist frowned when I tried to explain. My voice cracked. I had nothing but the clothes I was wearing. Do you have any emergency contacts, sir? I laughed. The irony hit hard. The only people who would have answered were the ones who abandoned me. For the next few nights, I slept wherever I could. The train station, a bench by the Seine, sometimes in the lobby of a small hostel, pretending to be a guest. The first night, I was angry. The second scared. By the third, I felt empty. But on the fourth day, something shifted. A cafe owner named Luke noticed me sitting outside his shop. He spoke English, broken but kind. When I told him what happened, he didn't pity me. He simply brought me coffee and said, "You start again." Those words stuck with me. You start again. Luke, let me wash dishes for food. Then he called a friend who helped me contact my country's embassy. It took weeks of paperwork, nights of exhaustion, and endless fear. But I made it home. And when I did, I promised myself something. I would never let them break me again. The next 3 years were a rebirth. I worked, saved, built my own company from the ground up. I met someone, Isla. She was strong, patient, the first person who looked at me like I was more than what my family said I was. We married a year later. Then came our son, Adam. The light that made every dark day worth it. By the time he turned 2, we had everything I once dreamed of. Peace, love, stability. Without a single call from my parents until one afternoon they showed up. It was a quiet Sunday. Isla and I were in the garden playing with Adam when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, my parents were standing there, older, thinner, but still carrying that same cold confidence. Mom smiled weakly. "Can we come in?" I said nothing. Dad spoke next. "We heard you have a son." Isla appeared beside me, holding Adam in her arms. Mom's eyes softened immediately. "Please," she whispered. "We just want to see him. We made mistakes, but he's family." I almost laughed. 3 years ago, they left me to starve in another country. And now, suddenly, they wanted to play grandparents. I looked at Isla. She understood without a word. She smiled politely and said, wait here." She took Adam inside, then came back holding a small envelope. She handed it to my mother and said gently, "Before you ask to meet our son, you should read this." Mom looked confused but opened it. Inside was a photocopy of the police report from the Paris embassy. The one documenting how they had abandoned me. Isla's voice was calm. "When you left him with nothing, you didn't just break trust. You broke something no apology can fix. Our son doesn't need grandparents who teach love through punishment." Dad's face went pale. Mom's hands trembled. "You can't keep him from us." Dad snapped. Isla's eyes were steady. "We're not keeping him from family. We're keeping him safe from you." They stood there frozen like the reality had just started sinking in. Mom whispered, "We just wanted to make it right." I stepped forward then, my voice quiet but firm. "You had that chance 3 years ago. You wanted to teach me a lesson. Well, here it is. Family isn't ownership. It's earned." Dad tried to speak again, but I closed the door. This time, I didn't look back. That night, Isla and I sat in the garden again, watching Adam chase fireflies. She placed her hand on mine. "Do you regret not letting them see him?" I shook my head. No, they didn't lose a grandson today. They lost the right to rewrite what they broke. Sometimes I still think about that note they left me in Paris. This is the punishment for turning your back on family. They were right in a way. I did turn my back on them, but not out of spite, out of survival. And that's the thing about life. Sometimes walking away isn't betrayal, it's freedom. They taught me pain. But they also taught me how strong I could be. And now when I tuck my son into bed, I remind him of something Luke once told me in that Paris cafe. You start again. But 3 years later, life had a way of surprising me again. Because sometimes even the people who break you will come back asking for forgiveness. And what happened next was something I never expected. It had been almost a year since my parents showed up at our door that day. After we turned them away, they didn't try again. No letters, no calls, no messages through relatives. It was as if they'd finally vanished from my life, this time by choice. And for a while, that silence was peaceful. Our son, Adam, was growing fast. He was 3 now, curious and bright with my wife, Layla's sharp eyes and my stubborn heart. Some nights I'd watch him sleeping, and a thought would always hit me. How could my parents abandon me so easily, their own child? Then I'd look at Adam and realize the truth. They never understood love the way I did now. To them, love had always been leverage. For me, it had finally become a choice. One morning, as I was heading to work, Isla stopped me at the door. "Someone's been calling," she said softly. I frowned. "Who?" She hesitated. "Your mother." I froze. Isla continued. "She didn't leave a message, just kept calling." I sighed, a part of me instantly tightening like an old wound reopening. "She doesn't give up easily." "No," Isla said, but her voice that didn't sound angry. It sounded tired. That night, I sat in the dark living room with my phone in my hand. Her number blinked on the screen. I hovered my thumb over a call. Then, almost without thinking, I pressed it. It rang twice. Then came her voice, fragile, unfamiliar. "Hello, it's me," I said quietly, a soft gasp, then silence. Finally, she whispered. "I didn't think you'd ever speak to me again." I didn't answer that, she continued. "I just wanted to tell you your father's not well. He's been sick for a while. The doctors say it's his heart." My grip tightened on the phone. For a moment, the years of resentment collided with something else. Fear. She kept speaking. "He keeps asking about you. And Adam, I know we don't deserve to see you, but if there's even a small chance, could you come?" Every instinct in me screamed, no, they'd left me to die once. Why should I go back? But another voice, quieter, said something else. "You start again." I closed my eyes and sighed. "I'll think about it." She didn't push. "Thank you," she whispered. When I hung up, Isla was standing by the door. She didn't have to ask. She'd heard everything. Do you want to go? She asked softly. I don't know, she nodded. Then let your heart decide, not your anger. A week later, we drove to the old town I swore I'd never return to. The house looked smaller, like time had folded it in on itself. My father sat in the garden, wrapped in a blanket, thin, pale, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. You came, he whispered. I came, I said quietly. He looked at Adam, who stood behind Isla, shy but curious. Is that him? I nodded. Adam, this is your grandfather. My father's eyes filled instantly. He reached out a trembling hand, but didn't touch him. Just looked like he didn't believe he had the right. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, voice breaking. I thought I was teaching you strength. But I was teaching you fear. His words hit harder than I expected. Years of pain condensed into one fragile sentence. Mom came out next. She looked older, smaller, and when our eyes met, hers filled with tears immediately. I don't know how to undo what we did, she whispered. But if you'll let me, I want to try. For a long moment, no one said anything. Then Isla stepped forward. Her voice was gentle but steady. We don't hold grudges, she said. But we protect our peace. If you want to be in our lives, you start there. Mom nodded, tears falling freely. I'll do anything. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. They didn't beg for money. They didn't demand forgiveness. They simply showed up differently. Mom volunteered at a shelter near our home. Dad sent Adam picture books every week. Not gifts of guilt, but quiet gestures of care. Little by little, the cracks between us began to heal. One evening, as we sat around our dining table, Isla leaned over and whispered, I think they finally get it. I smiled. So do I. Months later, we took Adam to the park. Mom and Dad were there watching him run in circles, laughing. At one point, Dad turned to me and said softly, You gave us another chance we didn't deserve. I looked at him, then it smiled faintly. Then, I'll spend what time I have left earning it. And he did. When he passed a year later, it wasn't with bitterness or regret. It was with peace. At the funeral, Mom held my hand and whispered, Thank you for letting us be family again. I squeezed her hand back. Just don't forget what it means this time. She nodded. Now every year, Layla and I take Adam to Paris. We show him the Eiffel Tower, the river, and the cafe where Luke once said, You start again. Because he was right. You can't change where you were broken, but you can decide how you rebuild. I was abandoned once, but love found me again.